Hopefully everybody had their own Zoom update. That didn't happen 2 minutes before the 9:30 call. It's great to see folks here on this election day. Thank you, Harold and Paula. Yes, happy election day. I don't know how to hide my captions on the new. And we are recording. So hello. Someone just sent me this article, which I have not had a chance to read, but the title is Has the 2024 election cycle set the stage for a national consensus on childcare? So we can hope for that. I am going to share some slides just to get us all grounded on where we are right now. These are not the right slides. All right, Jan, my son voted for the first time. He turned 18 in October. That's great. It's hard to believe the day is here. Here we go. So I added a few things. Here we are on election day. And I'm not going to share my full screen because I want to show some links as well. So there we are. So we've talked a lot about kind of what nonprofits can and can't do. And this is a link. And this is it's from Boulder Advocacy and NAOIC. So we'll talk in a little bit what people are doing today in your programs, but you can see what you can do and what you can and what you don't do on the slide. So the do's are help new voters understand elections and the voting process, distributed nonpartisan questionnaires to candidates, provide briefings to all the candidates on the issues, spend resources on voter registration, voter education, and grassroots lobbying. Encourage and help people to get to the polls. I just heard that Uber and Lyft are offering half price rides, and hers is offering free rental cars on election day. And you can register people to vote. So those are all the things that you can do. The don'ts, so if you're a 501c3, you can't endorse a candidate or oppose a candidate. You can't rate candidates on their support for early childhood or specific issues. So if you're not a 501c3, sometimes you see people do ratings or report cards. So if you're not a 501c3, you can do that. You can't publicize which candidates share the nonprofit's views. You can't ask a candidate to pledge their support for a cause. You can ask them how they where they stand on issues, but you can't ask them to pledge or support like an issue or a campaign that you're working on, issue campaign. You can't compare and contrast the candidate's responses to your organization views. And you can't target or register voters for only one party. So while today is election day, these are just good things to know as you're preparing. Oftentimes people get worried, so they don't do anything. And then again, here are all the links. The Secretary of State, you can see the election schedule, and we have I have to add our Strategies for Children website. I'll put that in the links. And so would love to hear from folks today. What are you doing in your own programs around elections? So you can either put it in the chat or come live. It'd be great to hear from people. What are you doing in your programs? Anything? Are you staying away? I see the chat. Thank you, Tom Weber. Oh, enter Mr. Rogers to help. That's one thing that you're doing, Tom. Anybody doing anything on the programs? Sometimes we do voting activities with children. You can put up signs that today is election day. Well, folks can add in chat if you're doing anything. And then as a reminder, this is who is on the ballot, the offices that are on the ballot today. the president and vice president, U.S. Senator. So in Massachusetts, that's Senator Elizabeth Warren's seat. So Senator Markey's seat is not up for reelection. The Governor's Council in Massachusetts, and remember, we have 40 state senators. 3 of them are not running for reelection. We have 160 state representatives. 15 are not running for reelection. And then the Register of Deeds, the Clerk of Courts, and county commissioners and additional local offices for cities and towns. We can't vote by mail anymore. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And remember, there are 5 ballot questions on the on when you go to a vote. And I, there will not, the ballot has some explanation about what a yes vote and a no vote means. Um, but we'll talk about kind of doing research before. So these are the questions on the ballot. The state auditor's authority to audit the legislature, the elimination of MCAS as a high school graduation requirement, the unionization for transportation network drivers, limited legalization and regulation of certain natural psychedelic substances, and then minimum wage for tipped workers. And if you have been out and about in the last few months, you certainly have seen kind of different groups taking different stances on these questions. And last time we were on the 9:30 call, we had a question about the MCAS, about kind of what it really means. And it's not removing MCAS, it's removing the requirement to pass the MCAS as a graduation requirement. And again, so folks should have received this red booklet. It's also available online on the Secretary of State's website. It goes through all of the questions. Each of them, and it really has more details about if you vote yes, this is what you're voting for. If you vote no, this is what you're voting for. And then, so after the election, as you're watching today, right, you're going to hear about exit polls. You're going to hear about, all the media is going to be talking about this. There's also been a lot of attention paid to kind of what's happening at the polls. So there are certain rules that you can't have candidate materials within a certain distance of polling locations. So there's I would say a heightened awareness of what's happening at the actual polls. You also will start seeing lines form, and the advice always is stay in line. So even if you get there late, to stay in line. And this is from the Secretary of State's website, that they do not publish the election results until after they're certified. So they will not publish the results on election night. So that's really important to know, because and as we saw in 2020, the certification process, especially for the president and vice president, it's a process. So states will be called for certain candidates. The media will do that. But the Secretary of State will not post the elections until they're certified. And then they have links to where can you find results, the certified results, and then you can learn how ballots are counted. And then after the election, there are tons of opportunities. So the first thing after the election, especially for your local state candidates, is to send them a congratulations note or letter and offer to be a resource. It's the easiest thing to do. You're celebrating good news. If you also live in a district where the rep or the senator is not running for reelection, you also may want, after, toward the end of the calendar year, to write a letter of thanks, especially legislators who have supported our issues, just to thank them for their service. That's another really easy thing to do. And then we will have a meet and greet on the 9:30 call. So the election happens in November. Everybody gets sworn in January, and then in Massachusetts, our new legislative session will start. We will start inviting the newly elected legislators to come to the 9:30 call in groups of 2 or 3, and it's always about the scheduling. But we ask each of them kind of to tell us a little bit about them, why they decided to run for office. and just to get to know them. It's a really good opportunity, and especially if you live in the district where this new person was elected, it's a great opportunity to be there and just check in. There's also been some talk about doing a legislative briefing, like to do a briefing for new legislators. And often when we do that, we invite the current legislature, the people who have already been elected or are kind of coming back for more terms. We'll invite them to come. And it's just a great way. We tend to do it in the spring, just because remember they all start their first day in January. All the committee assignments will happen. So kind of as we think about doing this, March, April would be a good time for a briefing. When all the committees get selected, especially the Education Committee in Massachusetts, we know we'll have a new House chair because Denise Garlick is not running for reelection. And so we'll have a new House chair. There'll probably be new members. Is also to send congratulations to them, to follow up. And then also we've talked about how you should be on your legislators' email lists. You should add them to your contact list so that you kind of just get in the habit of reaching out to them, and it's not an extra thing to do. It's kind of, embedded in the work. We did that one. And remember that no one is knowing how to do this. We all have to learn and practice. We have to learn about what we can do. We have to learn about the candidates. And I think sometimes people can be intimidated, especially around the ballot questions or even voting. So just how you are encouraging folks to vote, prepare, don't wing it, especially the ballot questions. That happened to me. I was going to go vote, and I had to do some more research as I was sitting in the parking lot. And then just remember that we are all smart, powerful leaders for children. Okay, it looks like Paula is taking the bigger children with her to vote at the school, which is a block away from our program. And Donna added, way too contentious this year, just trying to breathe through the day. Agreed. Tom shared, I think this is very, very typical and understandable, Donna. These recent elections have significantly disrupted how we teach civics. It is one of the things we need to think through to ensure that children understand the democracy that they will inherit and lead. That is true. There is a lot at stake. I also think, as early educators, we are so attuned to people, and maybe they're not saying it with words, but they're acting it in behaviors. And so I think kind of as we see what happens over the week, with all of the winners, just to be paying extra attention to children and families in your program, as results come in.
Yeah, no, that's too bad. That's what, 5 days?
And so Edna shared, although my group is too young to fully grasp the concept, we're enjoying songs about caring for one another. Plus, we've set up a welcoming Go Vote sign in our entrance area to support the importance of community involvement. That's great. I saw that Sesame Street was tweeting out, stay calm, keep it together, with Grover and the Cookie Monster. So I saw a tweet that said, even Sesame Street is trying to keep us together. Any questions or thoughts that you're having? I think Donna, I'm sure many people are feeling what Donna is feeling, that things are too contentious. It can be a tough time, especially when you're such a forward-facing kind of lifeline for families. We'll post these slides along with, in the 9:30 call follow-up folder. So you'll have them, especially around the kind of do's and don'ts. If you have any questions, the NAYC and the Boulder Advocacy are such good resources. Um, Tom, in 1988, I played George H.W. Bush in a mock debate with my friend Peter, who played Michael Dukakis for our class. It was a great learning experience. Children need this exposure, and they model how adults should handle themselves. That's right. Um, All right. Well, that's the elections, and maybe we can switch gears and talk a little bit about the directors. We are working to have as a follow-up to Donna's presentation, the 9:30 call, and the survey results. We are encouraging directors to attend the board meeting on November 13th in Boston and to offer statements during the statements from the public section of the board meeting. And Donna, I see that you're here. Do you want to do a quick? I'll pull up some of the materials so folks can see what we've prepared. But do you want to share a little bit about kind of how this came to be, how you're spreading the word?
Sure. Just remember, I'm trying to breathe today.
Yes.
Um, so the history of the presentation, Pouring from an Empty Cup, came from watching both the Facebook group in Massachusetts, also a national Facebook group that I'm part of, but definitely looking at Massachusetts, knowing that I think we're even better positioned than many other states. And despite that, even for me, despite being from a fairly well-resourced situation, the stress level is really, really high. And I think we naturally don't advocate for ourselves well. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to gather some data from my peers. The email thread has over 200 programs on it, and the Facebook group, I think, is 1.3 thousand. So 136 people responded, and the data really underlined what I thought was happening, and was very powerful. The words of the directors were very, very powerful. And so I put it together. I presented it on the 9:30 call on 9:30, September 30th. And yep, and got quite a bit of feedback, both publicly and privately, about how much this was ringing true for people, and that folks also wanted to support carrying that message forward. Like, what can we do next? So I think that's kind of the place that we're in, is what do we do next, and who's the right person or organization to take this forward. Like, now we know the problem is there. Everybody knows it. We shone the light on it. We said, here are the canaries in the coal mine. Now what? And so one piece is to make sure that the EEC board is really aware that this is a critical problem. If we're looking down the road at more pieces that need to be shored up as we make sure that our system is strong to support children and families, is to look at this kind of heretofore quiet piece of the problem, and that's what I'm calling program leadership. So directors, executive directors. And so the next step we thought was to at least go to the November board meeting and put in some public comments and see what the response might be there, and see who else has kind of some capacity to move this forward. I think one of the concerns is that it was very clear on that day. It was a Monday morning, and Amy, we had like almost 140 people on the call, lots of them directors, lots of them who were first timers. And so that they weren't there for me. They were there for the topic, right? So people come on the call in those numbers for the senators and the representatives and the commissioner.
And Donna Danette.
But they weren't there for me. I wish that they were. It
I
would be
think
a
that,
nice feeling,
well,
but they
they
were
were
there
there for
for the message
you.
that I was carrying. They really were there for the message that I was carrying. And I don't want to, I think it's really important that we focus on that, because all these people made this commitment to be there on that Monday morning, which is hard to do, because they wanted to feel heard. They wanted to feel seen, and they wanted to feel like there was help on the way for them, because we have naturally and appropriately focused our work on our educators, because one of the highest stressors for program leadership is attracting and retaining leadership, which goes to funding. And so the top two issues that directors were bringing forward were funding and staffing. But there's more beyond that, right? Because we're asking people to be in this very stressful, powerful position of decision making with years of experience in the classroom and a 3 or 4 credit college course. So there's a lot I think that we could focus on with EEC, with higher ed, in terms of the preparation and ongoing support for directors. And then I've been talking a long time about my concern for the pipeline, because lots of us are looking at moving out in the next couple of years. Certainly in the next 5 to 10 years, we're looking at a huge number of people wanting to leave program leadership. What are we doing during the next 5 years to get people ready? Because Kat Harayan talked very powerfully on that call that day that they couldn't replace her. And her program, which had been opened, I want to say since 1992, had closed because of lack of being able to find somebody to take over her position. That's really concerning. And we hear a lot of that kind of thing. And so the pipeline issue is a piece of it. So how do we support people currently? How do we build a pipeline? And then selfishly, maybe, I'm also thinking for those of us who have 25 to 30 years of wisdom and experience in the field that are looking at getting out of a 60-hour work week. I'm getting too old for a 60-hour work week. How do we not lose that wisdom and experience? What can we build as a system that says, here are these people that are moving out because they're too stressed? Can we lower their stress by pairing them as a mentor? What can we do to look at that piece as well?
Thanks for that, Donna. So tomorrow we are going to really focus on this. We've set up a kind of a Google Doc, and Donna, we have 4 people that said they're interested in going to share public comment. We're just spreading the word. We also know that that's hard to kind of be in person in Boston. But we wanted to kind of like try it out. It's another week until the board meeting, so we still have some time. So tomorrow we'll go through kind of this prep document that we made for how to prepare your public comment, what you should focus on, all the logistics about parking and getting there early and taking a deep breath. So if you know directors or have been hearing this in directors groups, please encourage folks to come to the call tomorrow. We will record it and go through all the materials. So Kelly also added that highly recommend Monica Guzman for some of the art of civil discourse, in addition to.
Don't feel like you have to read all that I write.
Okay,
Just
well,
I
why
go
don't you
on and
say
on
it?
and on. I love the chat, as you can see, but
Yes.
it's beyond. So just ignore what I say.
Well, no, Kelly, we won't do that. I think these questions about what you see, it also gets to this idea that sometimes people think, well, kids don't know, especially young kids aren't paying attention. They don't know what's going on. We know that they certainly do. So learning how to debate and disagree respectfully begins in preschool, and some would probably say before that. Tom also added that the Massachusetts Caregiving Coalition Networking Breakfast is this Thursday, November 7th. It's being hosted by Secretary Jones of Labor and Workforce and HH Secretary Kate Walsh. It's free. Thank you, Tom, for sharing that. And then Kelly added about this innovative administrative models. So to really think, and Jeff Liebman is also, I think, what we've heard, speaking at the EEC board meeting to share more about the report that he released last week. So Kelly talked about they're thinking about this, the compensation for administrators, which we know has come up in the grant, and Donna echoes that it would be great to share that at the board meeting. So we'll talk definitely in depth tomorrow about that. One last thing for election day, after you vote, share photos of you voting. Neri is putting together a kind of strategies for children graphic with all of us with our voter stickers. So please just share. You can say, I'm an early educator and I voted today. You don't have to talk about candidates, but just to show that people are out there hitting the polls. All right, we'll be back here tomorrow. I'm glad. Thank you for everyone who showed up today. We wondered if it might be a low turnout, but we wanted to be here together in community on this election day. So we will see everyone tomorrow morning, and fittingly, we'll be talking more about the directors who are doing incredible work in our field. Have a great election day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.